So thank you, and let's get going. So today's topic is the adversity quotient. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of IQ and EQ, and some of you may have heard of SQ, which is social quotient. So these are the four quotients of what we call, psychologists call intelligence. So we're going to do a deep dive into adversity, the adversity quotient today, because I think that word, as we're going to unpack it, is something we can all connect and we can all relate to as South Africans and as global citizens. So as always, I would like you to walk away at the end of this hour session with some practical tools and tips and techniques to cope with life. That is the essence of why I do what I do. Because as I often say, I can give you all the theory and the science, which fortunately is backed by science and theory. But if you can't relate to it and you can't use it, then you're pretty much wasting your time. So let us begin. The first thing I'd like you to do, and you may or may not have done this, but it's the first year I've really focused on this, is to think of, some of you may already know, and some of you are going, oh my goodness, I better think on my feet. If 2024, if I say to you, what is your word of the year? So pick a word of the year. It's your word. Don't judge it. No one else can tell you you can't use it, but stick it in the chat. Let's see what comes to the fore. If there's a theme, a trend going on. So pick a word that's meaningful for you, that hopefully you want to drive and embrace during the course of this year, and pop it in the chat, and we can see what is going to appear. I've got hope, loving it, hope, compassion, non-judgment, good. No non-judgment allowed. Good, nice and specific. More hope. It's a very positive sign that there's hope in light of everything we're going through. Authenticity. Expectations. Think of your word, pop it in. It may trigger for somebody else, might be something else for somebody else. And my word, I'm going to pop it in. It was a difficult choice. Actually, it wasn't. Came easily. I'm trying to practice flow, which maybe that's another webinar topic, just to keep the flow going. And what does flow mean in my life, in my work life, and my personal life? Cool. Thank you. So, as always, let's tackle the definition of what adversity quotient means. Okay. And there's lots of definitions, and I like this one. The measure of your ability to go through a rough patch in life and come out of it without losing your mind. Lots going on there. So in previous webinars, we've spoken about the reality of being a human is to go through pain and suffering. We can't escape that. So it's the same as adversity. You're not going to ever escape adversity. It's going to hit you no matter what. But how do we survive and how do we get through it? It's not magic. It's not going to necessarily fix it and make it all better, but we've got to do something to keep our sanity. That is the key. So the good news is that there is hope. And thank you for those that have mentioned hope quite a few times, because we certainly can. So as I said earlier, it's one of the four main intelligence types, other three being IQ, EQ, and SQ. And I have in my prep for today's session was looking for some really cool and pertinent quotes, and I thought there's two that really rang true for me. This first one by Charles Darwin, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's super powerful. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And as a person that doesn't deem myself as highly intelligent, I obviously really endorse this quote, but it makes a whole lot of sense as an animal and as a human being. And that's the power of learning to adapt to change, because if we don't adapt to change, we stay in our ways, we set in our ways, and we become stuck in the mud. We're going to watch a really powerful video on the 3 secrets of resilience. So you can't not talk about adversity without including the word resilience. So I want you to sit back and watch it. It will be about 10 minutes. And I did think about how I could shorten this clip, but actually I need you to hear every word, because for me, it was one of those clips to watch to go, aha moment, life-changing, something I need to grasp and understand and take with me. So please just sit back and don't get distracted, and let's watch this clip.
That was my test, search to good use, but sadly, I was wrong. For my own true test came in 2014 on Queen's birthday weekend. We and 2 other families had decided to go down to Lake Ohau and bike the Alps to Ocean. At the last minute, my beautiful 12-year-old daughter, Abby, decided to hop in the car with her best friend, Ella, also 12, and Ella's mum, Sally, a dear, dear friend of mine. On the way down, as they travelled through Rakaya on Thompson's track, a car sped through a stop sign, crashing into them and killing all 3 of them instantly. In the blink of an eye, I find myself flung to the other side of the equation, waking up with a whole new identity. Instead of being the resilience expert, suddenly I'm the grieving mother, waking up not knowing who I am, trying to wrap my head around unthinkable news, my world smashed to smithereens. Suddenly I'm the one on the end of all this expert advice, and I can tell you, I didn't like what I heard one little bit. In the days after Abby died, we were told we were now prime candidates for family estrangement, that we were likely to get divorced and we were at high risk of mental illness. Wow, I remember thinking, thanks for that. I thought my life was already pretty shit. Leaflets describe the 5 stages of grief: anger, bargaining, denial, depression, acceptance. Victim support arrived at our door and told us that we could expect to write off the next 5 years to grief. I know the leaflets and the resources meant well, but in all of that advice, they left us feeling like victims, totally overwhelmed by the journey ahead and powerless to exert any influence over our grieving whatsoever. I didn't need to be told how bad things were. Believe me, I already knew things were truly terrible. What I needed most was hope. I needed a journey through all that anguish, pain, and longing. Most of all, I wanted to be an active participant in my grief process. So I decided to turn my back on their advice and decided instead to conduct something of a self-experiment. I'd done the research, I had the tools. I wanted to know how useful they would be to me now in the face of such an enormous mountain to climb. Now, I have to confess at this point, I didn't really know that any of this was going to work. Parental bereavement is widely acknowledged as the hardest of losses to bear. But I can tell you now, 5 years on, what I already knew from the research, that you can rise up from adversity, that there are strategies that work, that it is utterly possible to make yourself think and act in certain ways that help you navigate tough times. There is a monumental body of research on how to do this stuff. Today, I'm just going to share with you 3 strategies. These are my go-to strategies that I relied upon and saved me in my darkest days. They're 3 strategies that underpin all of my work, and they're pretty readily available to us all. Anyone can learn them. You can learn them right here today. So number 1, resilient people get that shit happens. They know that suffering is part of life. This doesn't mean they actually welcome it in. They're not actually delusional. Just that when the tough times come, they seem to know that suffering is part of every human existence. And knowing this stops you from feeling discriminated against when the tough times come. Never once did I find myself thinking, why me? In fact, I remember thinking, why not me? Terrible things happen to you just like they do everybody else. That's your life now, time to sink or swim. The real tragedy is that not enough of us seem to know this any longer. We seem to live in an age where we're entitled to a perfect life, where shiny, happy photos on Instagram are the norm, when actually, as you all demonstrated at the start of my talk, the very opposite is true. Number 2, resilient people are really good at choosing carefully where they select their attention. They have a habit of realistically appraising situations and typically managing to focus on the things that they can change and somehow accept the things that they can't. This is a vital, learnable skill for resilience. As humans, we are really good at noticing threats and weaknesses. We are hardwired for that negative. We're really, really good at noticing them. Negative emotions stick to us like Velcro, whereas positive emotions and experiences seem to bounce off like Teflon. Being wired in this way is actually really good for us and served us well from an evolutionary perspective. So imagine for a moment I'm a cave woman and I'm coming out of my cave in the morning and there's a saber-toothed tiger on one side and a beautiful rainbow on the other. It kind of pays for my survival for me to notice this tiger. The problem is, we now live in an era where we are constantly bombarded by threats all day long. And our poor brains treat every single one of those threats as though they were a tiger. Our threat focus, our stress response is permanently dialed up. Resilient people don't diminish the negative, but they also have worked out a way of tuning into the good. One day, when doubts were threatening to overwhelm me, I distinctly remember thinking, no, you do not get to get swallowed up by this. You have to survive. You've got so much to live for. Choose life, not death. Don't lose what you have to what you have lost. In psychology, we call this benefit finding. In my brave new world, it involved trying to find things to be grateful for. At least our wee girl hadn't died of some terrible, long, drawn-out illness. She died suddenly, instantly, sparing us and her that pain. We had a huge amount of social support from family and friends to help us through. And most of all, we still had two beautiful boys to live for who needed us now and deserved to have as normal a life as we could possibly give them. Being able to switch the focus of your attention to also include the good has been shown by science to be a really powerful strategy. So in 2005, Marty Seligman and colleagues conducted an experiment, and all they asked people to do was think of 3 good things that had happened to them each day. What they found over the 6-month course of this study was that those people showed higher levels of gratitude, higher levels of happiness, and less depression over the course of the 6-month study. When you're going through grief, you might need a reminder, or you might need permission to feel grateful. In our kitchen, we've got a bright pink neon poster that reminds us to accept the good. In the American Army, they framed it a little bit differently. They talked to the army about hunting the good stuff. Find the language that works for you, but whatever you do, make an intentional, deliberate, ongoing effort to tune into what's good in your world. Number 3, resilient people ask themselves, is what I'm doing helping or harming me? This is a question that's used a lot in good therapy. And boy, is it powerful. This was my go-to question in the days after the girls died. I would ask it again and again. Should I go to the trial and see the driver? Would that help me, or would it harm me? Well, that was a no-brainer for me. I chose to stay away. But Trevor, my husband, decided to meet with the driver at a later time. Late at night, I'd find myself sometimes poring over old photos of Abby, getting more and more upset. I'd ask myself, really? Is this helping you, or is it harming you? Put away the photos. Go to bed for the night. Be kind to yourself. This question can be applied to so many different contexts. Is the way I'm thinking and acting helping or harming you in your bid to get that promotion, to pass that exam, to recover from a heart attack? So many different ways. I write a lot about resilience, and over the years, this one strategy has prompted more positive feedback than any other. I get scores of letters and emails and things from all over the place of people saying what a huge impact it's had on their lives. Whether it is forgiving family, ancient transgressions, arguments from Christmases past, or whether it is just trawling through social media, whether it is asking yourself whether you really need that extra glass of wine, asking yourself whether what you're doing, the way you're thinking, the way you're acting is helping or harming you, puts you back in the driver's seat. It gives you some control over your decision making. 3 strategies, pretty simple. They're readily available to us all, anytime, anywhere. They don't require rocket science. Resilience isn't some fixed trait. It's not elusive that some people have and some people don't. It actually requires very ordinary processes, just the willingness to give them a go. I think we all have moments in life where our life path splits and the journey we thought we were going down takes some terrible, veers off to some terrible direction that we never anticipated and we certainly didn't want. It happened to me. It was awful beyond imagining. If you ever find yourselves in a situation where you think, there's no way I'm coming back from this, I urge you to lean into these strategies and think again. I won't pretend that thinking this way is easy, and it doesn't remove all the pain. But if I've learned anything over the last 5 years, it is that thinking this way really does help. More than anything, it has shown me that it is possible to live and grieve at the same time, And for that, I will be always grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for sitting through that. I hope you could see why I couldn't leave any component of that out. I found that very, very helpful. And I think we can all relate to it in some way. And I'll share that link with you at the end. And just to recap those three strategies is that resilient people believe that shit happens or that life is going to whack you with something. They choose very carefully, point two, and intentionally what they focus on and what they're aware of. And three, you need to ask yourself, is whatever I'm doing helping me or harming me? And I think that last point to me, I personally have used that and continue to practice as a human being like the rest of you. Okay, so let me get back to our slides. So, understanding AQ, which you've already raised, and you've seen beautifully how Dr. Lucy Hone has explained it. It's the ability to persevere, to carry on, to bounce back from setbacks and learn from challenging experiences. So in no way is it, again, something easy and simple and it's going to challenge you to your core because remember, we are hardwired for worst case scenario or for negativity. So we're going to fight against it. We would prefer to go out of my control. I feel overwhelmed. I have no say. I have no choice. Instead of saying, where do I have control and what can I control? Finding those things that you have the ability to change, like the serenity prayer, and accepting those things that you can't, and the wisdom of knowing the difference. Okay, so without a doubt, you can't talk about adversity quotient without raising emotional resilience, mental toughness, and the ability to maintain a positive mindset. It's not positivity, so we're going to touch on that because you can get toxic positivity where you pretend everything's okay, but it's not okay. Another term we use is that growth mindset, that you believe that things can be different and things can change. So the components, very quickly, are the resilience, and we saw the beautiful example now by Dr. Lucy Hone. Its ability to bounce back quickly from difficulties. The perseverance, lovely word, is the determination to carry on despite the obstacles. And those first two, as South Africans, whoa, I think we own those, don't we? And they are strengths, they are skills. In other words, you can learn them. You can't use the excuse, oh, well, I'm not a resilient person. I'm not a person who can persevere. No, you are. You've just got to practice. Okay. The more you practice, the better you'll get at it. You're not going to become a superstar or perfectionist in these two concepts. But if you don't give them a bash, then you wonder why you're going to sit with the woes me, pity party, I can't cope, I'm overwhelmed. Adaptability, once again, South Africans, how have we learned to be agile and adapt to the realities of load shedding and water shedding, which in some areas here in KZN and Joburg we are still battling with. And then the positive mindset or the growth mindset, maintaining optimism and constructive thinking, even in challenging situations. Okay, as I said, that's not being positive. That's not toxic positivity. It's hope, as some of you have named as your word of the year, and as Lucy mentioned. Without the hope, there ain't nothing, is there? So keeping that hope alive is essential. And these, in a way, these tools give us that ability to carry on in spite or despite all the cuck and the drama and the difficulty that we are going through as a nation. So, as mentioned earlier, practicality. How do we practically continue and do what Lucy's referring to, or what the purpose of today's session is about? Okay. So practically, what is this cultivating a growth mindset? It sounds very fancy, but it's not. It is embracing the challenges as opportunities for growth. See setbacks as a chance to learn and improve. And as Lucy said, we've been promised this perfect life, which is such nonsense, because there ain't no such thing. So growth mindset is the ability to not fall into that awful trap. And you hear it's come out of my mouth before. And you hear it from other people where people say, it's so unfair. It's out of my control. Why do these things happen to me? So we use this language to reinforce this negativity around our ability to have choices and control. We will find every excuse why we don't have to and why we can't. And yet a growth mindset is that in itself is the biggest lie ever, because as the human beings, we've been given the gift and the ability to be able to continue and to cope. And we can look through history. We can look personally as South Africans, and we can even look in our own homes and in our own hearts, how we've had times where we have wanted to give up and throw in the towel and say, I can't. It's never going to change. So as soon as you're using the word never, ever, and this is what I'm trying to practice, you're not practicing a growth mindset. You're practicing a fixed mindset. So refrain from this point. If there's one thing you take from this point, refrain from saying never, ever. Because as soon as you're saying never, ever, what are you doing? You're closing down, shutting down, locking down, getting stuck in the mud, becoming set in your ways. Always be open to being wrong and to possibly learning something new. The second practical step is developing emotional intelligence. So this is a big, chunky topic. Once again, we could spend days talking about emotional intelligence. And the definition here is simply understand and manage your emotions more effectively. There are 5 components to EQ, but if we're going to insist on a one-liner, then this is the one-liner. This includes being aware of your feelings and those of others. So think about that. Going back to reminding you what feelings and emotions are. And there's wonderful research out there around feelings and emotions. And a feeling and emotion is, because I'm going to for the purposes of today's session, just mush them together, even though they are separate. They are triggers. They are guesstimates. They are signs. They are gifts to tell us that something is up. And I love it being put that way. They're telling us, good, bad, and ugly, that something is up and we need to take notice of it. And we must use the term not good or bad feelings. We must say healthy or unhealthy feelings. Because all feelings are telling us something. So let's not reject them. Let's not judge them. Let's spend some time understanding why I'm feeling this by naming it. And then only once we name it, we can then do something with it. Does that make sense? If you can't name something, then you don't know what to do with it. If we have an illness, we don't go to the root cause. We're going to keep on, as unfortunately, as a Western medication now tackles that treat the symptom, we don't go to the root cause of why we're feeling the way we feel. So it's the same as feelings and emotions. We go to the root cause. So what's the feeling? Because it can bring on all sorts of emotions. But what am I feeling? Am I feeling hurt, frustration, anger, anxiety, irritability? Where's it coming from? So that takes time. And it means you have to spend time unpacking that yourself. There's nobody else that can do that for you. So that's the key. That's the first step. The second step is once you grasp that, and that's a lifelong journey of getting better at that, we also have to be in tune with other people's feelings and emotions. That's what EQ is. Okay. We have to also understand how other people are feeling because we're not an island. We have relationships. We have people that we work with. We have people that we socialize with. We have our family. We have our outlaws, our in-laws. And we aren't perfect. We have our flaws and our faults, but we also have our beauties and our gifts that we need to be able to share. The third breakdown or practical step is building a support system. Okay, spoken about this many times. We need to surround ourselves by people that support and encourage and are good for our mental health. And the question that always challenges everybody is that who are the 5 people that you spend most of the time with? And are they hindering? Going back to Lucy's third point, are they hindering or are they helping you? And in that, we need to make some difficult decisions because I guarantee you, because of how our brains are structured, we probably have people in our lives that are not actually helping us. They may be hindering us. And the difficulty in that is that sometimes you might be married to one of them, or you might have produced one of them if you have children, or you might have married into the extended family, or you might be working for one of them, or one of them might be working for you. And this is when you have to make some difficult, but some taking charge situation, because it means sometimes you don't necessarily have to get rid of the person, the human. It might mean you have to have a difficult conversation, as we spoke about in that in the last workshop. You've got to have a courageous conversation because it ain't working out for you. And hopefully after that courageous conversation and time, that person's not going to be a hindrance. They're going to be a support, mutual support, remember. Or you might actually have to make that difficult call of removing that person from your life. Okay. We don't mean hiring someone to remove them in the form of shifting jobs, disciplinary process, divorce, separation, spending less time with your mother-in-law, etc. So there's tools in which we can use to do that. But it's a very good question. But we feel quite uncomfortable about it. Think about it, because it could mean I have to make a difficult decision. And it does mean we have to do some inner work in ourselves as to also why are we allowing ourselves to be surrounded by people like this. So they're all challenging, but I think they're all very necessary. And with these practical steps, I always say, not everything in this session is going to jump out at you, but you'll find that there'll be 1 or 2 that components or points that are going to jump out at you. As much as you want to do everything, you can't. But which are the ones, and you know very well which are the ones that are touching you and making you sit up and making you lean in. Go forth and tackle and practice those. The fourth and final is something that's also very close to my heart, because this is my space, learning and development, is continuous learning. Okay, sometimes we talk about lifelong learning or unlearning to relearn, and I love that concept because that's what we are naturally doing as we grow. As humans, as adults, we are unlearning and relearning all the time. But sometimes we think, no, my value system, my upbringing must stay the same because what I was taught was right. Actually, in most cases, what you were taught and what you learned was wrong. Because remember, you arrive on this earth as a clean slate, and you pick up your biases, your judgments, your values, your morals along life's journey. And that's personal, that's yours. It's impossible that they all are perfect and ideal. No, it's not, because then everyone else in the world would be wrong, wouldn't they? So what this really means is that be open. And I love this concept of curiosity, exploration, openness to acquire new knowledge, new skills, to be open to being wrong. And the latest research around being wrong is really interesting because it shows a growth mindset, because wrongness needs to be rewarded in the fact that I've learned something new and I need to perhaps change my way, or at that time it was right, but now the world's changed. So I can't, let me give you a nice controversial example. So I can't go, well, I only believe there's male or females, and I refuse to acknowledge anything other than that. Now, what does that sound like? It sounds like a fixed mindset. Yes, you may not be comfortable with it because it's breaking what you believe is your core belief system. And yet, if you're not open to being inquisitive, to showing curiosity, it makes you set in your ways, stuck in the mud, and ultimately irrelevant. That's a nice, juicy, controversial example. So it can be as simple as, accepting people with, let's just find some less controversial examples. People that have pink hair, people that bring up their children differently to you because you think yours is the right way and you've brought up your children with firm discipline, but now people are talking about gentle parenting, and you go, what codswallop, what nonsense. And yet, guess what? The research, the science behind that is showing us clearly the impact that strict, forceful parenting has on our psyche, and that actually a more nurturing space, whether that be at work, whether that be at home, makes us more beneficial as human beings. And in business, we talk about that term psychological safety. Because psychological safety isn't just making it all cushy and a happy-go-lucky environment. It is allowing people to be who they are, to not be afraid to speak up, to be able to question, to be able to challenge, but also they have to show accountability and responsibility. So you can't lose that for psychological safety. You're still going to be accountable and responsible for what you do. Okay. So a lot going on here. Just question yourself. Every time you say no, I refuse, I don't want to, it goes against my morals, my values, my religion, my culture, my gender. As soon as you're saying that, reflect first before you start pointing fingers and judging. If you don't understand it, you've got no damn excuse. Google it. Ask questions. So approach a person who falls into something or does something that you don't understand or you feel uncomfortable about. Go and have a conversation with them and be honest and open and be authentic and real and say, I don't understand what transgender means. It's nothing that I ever came across before, was brought up with, and I'm worried from a religious perspective what it means, but tell me more. And remember, it's not about changing your mind. It's just you being more inclusive, isn't it? Okay. Hopefully that's gave you some food for thought. Right, I've got another short clip here to show you. Angela Lee Duckworth is another wonderful researcher and influencer when it comes to, she talks a lot about grit. That's quite an American concept, but grit's also very much related um, to resilience and adversity. So just a short clip, which I'm going to play for you now.
What if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure. Things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned.
Right, so that was another powerful clip by Angela Duckworth. And some of you may have come across the latest book by Amy Edmondson about failure and how essential and critical it is. And yet we've realized, I'm sure a lot of you think back to when you were at school, when you studied, that failure is always frowned upon. And yet we need to fail in order to learn and to grow and to do better. So we need to embrace it. It's not a stigma. It's not a negative. It is par for the course of being a human being. And it's a really cool book to go and check out by Amy Edmondson. Okay, so let me continue. And then we can go to the chat and we can go and we can raise hands and ask many, many questions. And there we go. So here's another quote. We're wrapping up now. Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which in prosperous circumstances would have lain dormant. And when I saw that, I was like, OMG, how's that for a growth mindset and approach to dealing with crap? Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents when in prosperous circumstances would lay dormant. And as a South African, I go, hello, do we go through adversity? Yep. And it's through that adversity is when the magic actually happens, when our ability to be innovative, creative, and overcoming the hurdles that lay before us. So I thought, and this was um, by Horace, the Roman poet, and profound statement, which this is the first time I've actually seen this one. Then just to tap into what Lucy was saying earlier, that often and she did raise it, that often when we go through tough times, we say, why me? Don't fall into that trap. And that's one thing that I've walked away from learning about adversity, is stop with the why me, because the why me becomes your woe is me, your pity party, life is unfair, your fixed mindset. It does not discriminate. It's just that we're in a world now that just perpetuates and promotes perfection and living my best life, when actually we need to share more, be open more, be honest more with each other, rather than pretending, because that's what we're really doing. And you can talk about, from a psychological perspective, we talk about your true self and your false self. So your false self isn't normally necessarily bad, but we're not at ease. When we're our true self, we can be vulnerable and open and come forward and to share and to say, I'm not coping, I'm battling, I can't do this, please support me, please help me. But our false self stops us from doing that, because we're trying for everything to be okay. And there's that awful positive or fake toxicity of positiveness, which we need to fight, and we need to be aware of personally. So that's my story. If you want to get hold of me, those are all my credentials. If you don't follow me, or please, I'm going to encourage you, please connect with me on Facebook. LinkedIn. Sorry, not Facebook, LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I really enjoy that social. There's my phone number and my email address. So please pop me a mail. Otherwise, very happy to. I will definitely share what I'll do. I'll get HR Talk to send you all a mail with the links, and I've got a very cool adversity assessment that you can do to actually test your adversity levels. Because as soon as you know where you're at, then you can do something about it. So if there's any questions, please pop them in the Q&A, or please just raise your hand and you can be unmuted to ask the question. I really ask you to participate here, because I'm sure, hopefully, planted a couple of seeds in your head, and there'll be some questions that you may be like to dig a little deeper around. But anything that's on your minds, please pop it in the chat or just put up your hand. You can be brave and bold. Otherwise, you're just going to see me staring at the screen. And I like the sound of my voice. Any questions? Any hands? Right. Thank you for your commentary, Tom. You have a question. How can one assist a person to transition from victim to, oh, that's a good question. Think about, I think it's a super helpful. Great question. I think victim mentality is a huge challenge we have globally, but in South Africa also connected to our past and our history. And by saying the harsh, often people get frustrated and say you're behaving like a victim, and that's not going to change someone's behavior. And I think it's a journey. There's the inner work. You can identify, first of all, you can identify whether someone is suffering from a victim mentality by the way they speak and their attitude and even their body language. Because victim mentality is often that I am less than, and the psychological term is ego deflation. I'm less than, so I'm a victim, and life has happened to me. I have no control. And to assist somebody in that is really to listen to listen to their story first. So tell me your story. And it's tough when if it's your partner or if it's a close friend, even if it's a work colleague, because you need to go, as always, as psychologists will tell you, or counselors, to where it's coming from. And often most of us have never been heard properly. We all need to just be heard. So tell me your story. We've all got a story, and you'll find the magic in allowing someone to speak and give their story. Often is the trigger or the key for someone to start unpacking how they're feeling. And in this case, from a victim perspective, to identify why they think they're a victim. But the power of the conversation is that the idea is that they will get to the reasons and also identify and acknowledge it, because you've also got to acknowledge that you're a victim. Because if you don't think you are, like most addictions, then it's pointless exercise to help somebody. That person has to come to the terms of acceptance themselves first before they can actually move forward. So I hope that helps, Tom. Any other questions? No hands. Right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining today, and I wish you well. You have 4 minutes to go and change the world, to make the world a better place before you get back into your routine. Please take time out for you. Don't forget, do you come first, look after yourselves, find a way to re-energize, stop with all the damn excuses, okay? And hopefully I'll see you all or next time. As I said, HR Talk will send you a mail with all the clips, the clip links and the contents. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Bye.